If the tsunami went a mere 12 kilometers inland, it would have reached Lake Albala and engulfed the Egyptian army. By this point, according to the Bible, the Israelites had advanced beyond the reach of the waves. As it turns out, some of the people that followed Moses across the parted sea and later to Mount Sinai did not follow him to the Promised Land. They boarded ships and sailed in an unknown exodus to Greece. Why hasn't anyone noticed? Because no one thought to look in Greece for evidence of an event that happened in Egypt. In fact, until recently, there was very little archaeological evidence of contact between the Minoan civilization of ancient Greece and Egypt at the time of Moses. All that changed with two great discoveries. The first was in 1972, when digging under the ash at Santorini, archaeologists made a startling discovery, linking this area of the world with the Exodus. They found unusual Minoan-style wall paintings. Incredibly, among them there is a map depicting an ancient journey from Egypt to Greece.
The whole scene may be considered as the earliest, the oldest map in the world.
The map is breathtaking. The colors as vibrant today as 3,500 years ago. It depicts an epic journey from Egypt to Santorini. The voyage is complete with a terrible storm at sea. Working even further back, we see that the ancient sailors sailed past Egyptian fauna and palm trees in the Nile Delta. The map then follows the river inland and ends up in a magical city on a kind of river-bound island. This mysterious city is surrounded by high walls with multi-storied houses, elegant ladies peering from the rooftops, and a rich harbor. At the time, there was only one port in Egypt that fits the city in the map. The fabled Avaris. Until late in the 20th century, there was no archaeological proof of contact between Avaris and the Minoans of Santorini. Then, in 1992, perfectly preserved Minoan paintings were discovered at Avaris, proving that in biblical times, this city was populated not only by Israelites, but also by people from ancient Greece.
Most people do not realize that there was not only contact between the Minoan world and the Egyptians, it was very intense contact. Contact in trade, contact in ideas. We have the Egyptians referring to the Minoans as the only other civilization that they consider civilized. It was not a military presence in Egypt. It was actually a trade presence.
So we now know that there was intimate contact between Greece and Egypt at the time of the Exodus. As a result, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that some of the followers of Moses came from the area of ancient Greece. And it's quite possible that some of these people returned to Greece after the Exodus. The Bible says that Moses and his followers left Egypt with great quantities of swords and Egyptian gold. 3,500 years after the fact, is there any chance of finding Israelite swords and Egypt's golden treasures in Greece? This is Mycenae, 50 kilometers from the coast on the Greek mainland. In 1876, the famous archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann, the excavator of Troy, made a world-shaking discovery at Mycenae. Here, he found 3,500-year-old tombs. The tombs are incredible, with long shafts leading to vaulted ceilings. They were built in the shadow of a mountain that has the shape of a pyramid. Surprisingly, they contained a treasure trove of swords and Egyptian gold. Schliemann believed that the gold belonged to Homer's Agamemnon, who led the war against Troy for the sake of the beautiful Helen. But scholars soon discovered that the people who were buried in the tombs lived about 300 years before Agamemnon. They lived around 1500 BCE. Is it possible that here lie some of the followers of Moses? The answer is on the tombstones that we now know were placed on top of the death chambers. The meaning of the images on the gravestones has never been deciphered until now. If you ask scholars, what is it? They say, well, it looks like a hunt, but there's no animal. Or it looks like a battle, but there's no two people fighting. Let's look at it and let's see what in fact do the grave stelae of Mycenae actually testify to if we just look at it very simply, without any prejudice and without any preconceptions.
I almost want to whisper some kind of secret because nobody realizes that they have a 3,500-year-old movie, if you will, 3 frames of the parting of the sea. And they don't know it. They don't know it, but look at it. Just look at it. It's so clear. Frame number 1, you see waves on top and waves on the bottom. You actually literally see the parting of the sea. And this guy is on a chariot chasing Moses, who's holding a staff. That's frame number 1. And right over here, you have frame number 2 in the movie. The water is gathering into whirlpools. And look what's happened over here. Everybody thinks the man with the staff is the loser, but he's actually turned around. He's turned around. He's facing his enemy. He's occupying higher ground, and this guy is occupying lower ground. And look, there's walls of water coming. And in the 3rd frame, which is in another museum, even more hidden, you see this guy's been overturned, the water is engulfing them, the horses are upended, and the story is complete.
But what do the experts say?
In this very example, the options can be mainly 2. Either he is a warrior in a battle scene, and he's the enemy, he's chasing the enemy, and the enemy is trying to escape holding his sword. And the second option may be the chariot race scene.
So this guy is, this is kind of an ancient Olympics, this guy is unofficial, and this guy is racing around.
He is bearing a sword as well, and he's holding a sword.
This doesn't look like much of a sword, it looks more like a staff to me.
Yes, in this case, it's an abstract depiction. It's not a naturalistic depiction, so we cannot say much.
To understand what's going on here,
All you have to do is actually take this 3D image, which has been flattened out, and just pull it out. Just pull it out. And what you get is the biblical story.
When the 3 stelae are put together, what we see, exactly as depicted in the book of Exodus, is an Egyptian charioteer chasing Moses across the parted sea. Then, Moses turns and faces his pursuer. Walls of water rise and come down on the Egyptians. Finally, rider, chariot, and horses are drowned.